everybody, welcome back to the channel. I'm your host Prickly Hedgehog. Today we're going to do something a little bit different in terms of news. We're going to take a little bit of a sweep, an overview if you like, of the third-party developers in the game. Now I've been wanting to do this for some time, but things have been quiet among many of the studios that are producing content, I think in part because of a couple of things. One would be COVID, which I think put a dent in productivity and the ability of people to work collaboratively until things kind of reconfigured themselves, and a lot of people are now quite comfortable working from home. That's become the new norm, but for a while there obviously it was pretty disruptive. We also had the release last year of Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020, and some of our franchises, some of our studios were producing content for that franchise outside of DCS world. So some of these studios have irons and other franchise fires, if you like. Flying Iron Simulations, as an example, produced a Mark 9 Spitfire recently for Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020. And, you know, these things, along with changes to the core engine that Eagle Dynamics has been working on with 2.7 Edge, has meant that I haven't been able to delve into what some of these third-party studios have been up to because of their relatively quiet status. Some people haven't updated since last year, some have updated at the beginning of the year, and we haven't heard anything for several months. So trying to compile all this information as well as all the other commitments that I have has been difficult. So over the last few weeks I've been sort of putting a script together so that we can have a little look. Now, I'm not going to go in any particular order, but we will start with Razbam, who really, they're a team that has some of the greatest breadth of projects, and this is a little bit of a blessing and a curse for them, I think, because it creates this love-hate relationship with Razbam. There's no question they have some very, very good products in the game already, but some of the projects that are being worked on, people are very, very antsy about seeing and get frustrated when we see snippets of this, that, and the other, or a new project that they're working on, and things like the F-15E are still unfinished, despite being worked on for many, many years. Now, you know, I can't comment on their business model. That's the approach that they take, and Razbam has been pretty unashamed about saying, yep, it'll be done when it's done and not before, and anything you see is not indicative of any necessary progress update or even a indicator of when this thing is going to be released. But we're going to release some information. Here it is, take it or leave it. And of course, again, this does create a little bit of not animosity, but a little bit of frustration, I know, from some of you. I've seen some very terse comments in the comment section. Some of them don't get published because of the I generally keep the swearing thing off. It just saves me time, and some people get a little bit vitriolic. I'm not opposed to swearing per se. In fact, I swear a lot myself. I come from New Zealand, and you know, we do that down there. But Australians, New Zealanders, we're not opposed to swear words. And some of those comments don't get published, but I have seen, yes, some pretty terse tirades against Razbam for products that they are waiting for. So let's take a look at what they're doing. Well, we know they're no stranger to the game, and they've already got, in fairness, some very, very good products in the game. The Harrier, for example, the Mirage 2000C, and of course the MiG-19 Farmer. These are all very, very good products. The Harrier particularly is a very complex aircraft because of the flight model alone. You know, it's kind of part helicopter, but it's a jet. So they have done a tremendous job with both of those aircraft. And Baltic Dragon recently has done a lot of work on rejigging the manual for the Harrier, and of course, if you're familiar with Baltic Dragon, he has done some fantastic campaigns, third-party campaigns for DCS World as well. And I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, he has also gone through and updated some of the in-game training missions, which in my opinion, I think those are some of the best in the game for value and comprehensiveness. I think the only other aircraft that I can think of that has as many comprehensive training videos, maybe the A-10C. And that's comparative, but certainly not necessarily a one-to-one comparison, because I still think the Harrier has more interesting breakdowns of the training missions. You can have a sort of truncated version, or you can go through and do the whole thing from start to finish, if you like, as you gather training experience with this aircraft. And you need it because, as I said before, it's a unique kind of aircraft. It's a tricky aircraft to fly. Sure, conventional takeoffs, no major drama, but anything involving vertical landing requires, like the helicopters that we have in the game, a fair degree of practice and finesse, especially if you're landing on an area that is moving at sea. So you get the drift. It's a versatile aircraft, and the time that I've spent in it, which hasn't been a lot, I must say, has been very, very enjoyable. I enjoy that flight model that it has and the unique nature of this particular aircraft. Now, recent patches, as mentioned, have integrated a lot of systems, updates, and fixes. There was some discussion recently about removing one of the Maverick missiles, the AGM-65F, which apparently was a pre-2010 weapon, and a lot of community members pointed out that this weapon isn't actually used currently by the US Marine Corps as part of the aircraft's current configuration. So Razbam sort of kicked around whether or not they were going to remove the weapon altogether. Instead, what they decided to do was appease the various factions, if you like, in the community, and the weapon will be an optional one for those players who want to stick with the realism element and not have that weapon available, and those who want to use it can still do so with the support inside the aircraft for the software that comes with that, if you like, or that integrates with that particular weapon. So it's an interesting compromise, and that's a clever thing to do by Razbam. It keeps those who have a foot in either camp or are firmly entrenched in one position the option to still fly the aircraft as they feel it should be. The Mirage 2000 similarly has also received major updates, and the last big patch a few weeks ago saw around 67 line items for fixes, additions, and improvements to this popular aircraft. The Mirage is, as many of the aircraft they have produced is also a capable aircraft, and in the right hands, it's a pretty deadly dogfighter in addition to its other roles, which it's capable of doing. It's a powerful aircraft, and as I said, it's popular among those who are comfortable flying her. Razbam are actually right now testing some new features, including new radar technology. They've recently stated that the technology sees an increase in CPU demand by 15%. However, they've managed to restrict resourcing to unused cores, which is similar to techniques Asobo is doing right now with rendering resources in Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020. And this is, of course, to make better use of multi-processing or multi-core CPUs, which is awesome stuff. We're still waiting, of course, for Eagle Dynamics to get Vulkan to do a sweep over, if you like, of the game engine. I think this is going to be a massive help to a lot of players who are using average to mediocre systems. We're really in a weird situation right now with how much the technology has been improving. With these new graphics cards that we've seen that were released last year immediately went into shortages. The cost of maintaining a new computer right now, or getting a new computer or upgrading a computer, just the general maintenance to bring it up to speed, especially for flight sims, which are always resource heavy, is really prohibitive for a lot of people. So any improvements that Eagle Dynamics and Asobo, for example, can bring to the table to improve the overall performance of these games is going to be massively beneficial, of course, for those of us with average systems, or those of us just trying to maintain our enjoyment in the flight sim environment, because that's, it's an expensive hobby, not even just maintaining your computer, but also buying the peripheries. Everything else has gone up in price as well. So it's an expensive hobby if you're about to embark on it or in it, and or are trying to upgrade. So hopefully this is something that irons itself out in the future, but I think we've got a few more years of this high pricing that we're seeing right now. Now, among the other big projects that Razbam are working on, and this is probably one aircraft that brings more vitriolic frustration from community members than any other, is the F-15E. Now, of course, the famous Mud Hen, labeled as such because it has an air-to-ground role primarily, and is capable of mud moving, so to speak. It's a departure from the F-15's well-known role as an air superiority fighter. Of course, the E variant is actually a two-seater aircraft. At this stage, it's not clear. I don't think, from what I've seen from Razbam, based on the comments in past updates and discussions, that we're going to have any AI Jester type system. It's going to be released as a multiplayer aircraft. And I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong though, I believe you can still fly the aircraft without the Wizzo, without that equivalent of a Rio in the F-14. So I think that will make it, a viable aircraft for those who don't have a partner to fly with. Of course, it will be very enjoyable for those who want to do multi-crew flying in multiplayer environments. So we'll see how that goes. But yeah, correct me if I'm wrong there about the capability of the aircraft to fly without the Wizzo. It may be a lot more labor intensive without the Wizzo, but again, let me know if I'm wrong there. Now, we do have the F-15C in game, which of course is a non-fidelity module and is actually an ED product, and that's been around since the early days of the franchise. And obviously it's not a multiplayer aircraft, it's a single pilot ship. It's a popular module even as a non-clicky cockpit, and like the Su-27, both aircraft are huge draw cards if they were ever to be made in full fidelity modules. They're still popular in their own right, particularly the F-15, but alas, there's no signs of them ever being available for further development in that area as things stand right now, unfortunately. But gosh, if that changes, I'll certainly let you know, because both the F-15C and the Su-27 are popular aircraft and are a nice comparative in terms of their capability. Now, in addition to the F-15E, Razbam also has a big draw card in the MiG-23 Flogger. Now, this is, again, an impressive aircraft in its own right, and it will be a much-needed addition to the Red Force stable of aircraft available to them to play, and hopefully will join the ranks of the MiG-29 full-fidelity aircraft, which has been touted as a possibility for Eagle Dynamics. No sign yet of that aircraft being worked on. No signs yet that that is a thing. Has been discussed, but that's about all we know at this time. It's hasn't become a thing of gospel. So, of course, the MiG-29 is being flown by several non-Russian states now, and information pertaining to that aircraft is available. So hopefully we will see it in game at some point. With regards to the Flogger, there was a recent tweet by Razbam that they were non-textured images of the exterior. The comment indicated that the next time we see it, there was a high likelihood that it would be textured. So hopefully we will see it in early access sometime, but of course it's speculation, similar to the Eagle, which again is a matter of conjecture when that will be available in game. Now, rounding out the stable of current aircraft, Razbam, as I said, has also produced the MiG-19, which is also well done and proof the company enjoys having a diverse range of products across various eras in our flight history. I've only spent a little time in the cockpit of this famous aircraft. It's actually quite fun to fly. The cockpit feels quite claustrophobic compared to many of the modern jets, but it's interesting to experience this evolutionary step in aircraft between the second, third, and fourth generation jet aircraft development, which is cool. So in addition to this, we've seen snippets of other aircraft from Razbam, including the English Electric Lightning and the Super Tucano, as well as assets for the new South Atlantic map, which I'm really looking forward to. Now, this map is simply enormous. It's going to be really the South Atlantic equivalent of the Marianas, and hopefully by now you should be looking at some sneak pics that I got from one of the developers from Razbam. And this includes Rio Gallegos, where they've generated some terrain. I understand the following airports will be released with the map, and more may be released post-release. So we're talking here Port Stanley, Mount Pleasant, Port San Carlos, and Rio Gallegos, Rio Grande, and Ushuaia. I think I've said that right. Ushuaia. I think that's how you say it in the Spanish. Correct me if I'm wrong there. It's a little bit tricky for me to get my head around and my mouth around. Yeah, again, I think this is going to be an impressive map. I'm very much looking forward to what is going to be a very rich environment for carrier operations and training opportunities. As I said, it's going to be the equivalent of the warmer theater of the Marianas. And if anything that we've seen from that map is to go by, I think the South Atlantic option around the Falklands is going to be equally enjoyable. It will actually, I think, encompass a bigger area, and right up until, as I said, Argentina. So, and I think bits of Chile as well. So really, this is a map that needs to come to the game fairly soon. I speculate that they are close, but time will be the judge of that, of course, and I don't want to get people's hopes up, because it is something that they've been working on for a while now. Now, I mentioned Flying Iron Simulations. This is a small Australian studio, and I think it was last year that we first got a look at what they were working on, which of course is the famous A7E Corsair, and we haven't had a major signal on development progress since January of 2021, and this may be in part because of the work the team are doing for Microsoft Flight Simulator, including their own version of the Mark 9 Spitfire, which is now available in that platform for around 35 Aussie bucks. So they've been busy, no question about that, but again, not a major update on what they're doing with the A7. It appears that they are doing work on the systems and the avionics, and have been well into development of a full fidelity flight module or model using real world data and computer modeling to build data for the in-game flight parameters, which is cool. As of the last update, the team indicated that they are on target for progress in that area, but it indicated setbacks late last year with overall progress. They didn't say why they had some setbacks, but hopefully that's something that they have overcome. And again, like I said, we don't have an update currently, except since January, so we're mid-year here. Hopefully, as long as the progress was being made, we can expect some sort of update soon on the additional progress that's been made on those systems and within the airframe. So stay tuned, because I think it will be an interesting product. All right, well, let's turn now to True Grit Virtual Technologies, who are producing the Typhoon. And I use that term a little bit euphemistically, because we don't know right now whether or not that aircraft is being produced or not. The studio has been pretty much quiet in terms of social media releases since December of 2020, 7 months ago, effectively. Gosh, and I know a lot of you are starting to question me about whether or not the aircraft is still in development, that the studio is still up and running, what's going on. I know I can't remember, they had a big interview with Grim Reapers when they released initially that they were going to produce it. So that was way back, probably about this time last year, or a little bit earlier from memory. They did another, I can't remember if it was the end of last year or the beginning of this year, there was another little interview that they did again. Gero sat and talked to Cap again from Grim Reapers. I know they've done a few interviews with the German-speaking sim groups over in Germany, so maybe some of my German viewers may be able to corroborate if there's anything going on in different platforms. But the major social media platforms that they have, Instagram and Facebook, as far as I can tell, have been silent. Now, I don't know, maybe they are too busy to do frivolous things, to like releasing information for people like you and me to dribble and salivate over and get excited about the smallest details. Such as the hype and excitement of this particular aircraft, of course. We are, very excited about it. I just don't know. Maybe they are just too busy. Maybe, I hope, that this is not a signal of a collapse of progress and issues with the studio, that something terrible has happened and they're not currently able to produce. These things happen. They've happened before in the flight sim community and flight sim history. Studios do come and go. It's an expensive business, as we know. Eagle Dynamics has indicated in the past that for every year of development on a major full fidelity platform, it costs them about $1 million. That's a lot of money in anyone's language. So fingers crossed that's not a fate that has befallen this studio, because I would say, based on the anecdotal evidence that I've collected, the Typhoon was probably the most anticipated and salivated after aircraft outside of the F-15E. I think it probably bumped it a little bit, and of course the Phantom F4, which is also another sought after aircraft, and I think Simon Pearson from Eagle Dynamics indicated that was being kicked around, but it was way down the road if it was going to happen at all. So yeah, it's not looking good. Let me know if you know anything, or if you're one of my German viewers, maybe you can attest to any other platforms that the team over there from True Grit are working with, that we're just not aware of here in the Americas market, if you like, or the English-speaking market. Help me out if you've heard anything. I have tried to contact them, but I wasn't using necessarily my my prickly hedgehog clout, if you like, what limited influence I have. So I'm just any Joe Schmo contacting them through Facebook. They're of no obligation to reply anyway. So again, yeah, I'm worried. So let me know if you have any further insights into what's going on there. All right, well, let's take a little look at Leatherneck simulations now. Of course, they need no introduction to the game, and we saw a recent update with regards to the F4U Corsair via a newsletter from Eagle Dynamics. And they have already considerable pedigree in the game, of course, with the MiG-21 and the Christen Eagle II aerobatics-based aircraft, neither of which I can attest to having any experience with. I tinkered with the MiG-21. I wasn't overly comfortable with it. The cockpit was pretty claustrophobic, a little bit like the MiG-19 that I mentioned earlier. But those that do fly it swear by it, and have talked about the enjoyment that they have with this aircraft, which is quite capable. Of course, it is still flying today, and it's still a capable platform, and is very much an iconic aircraft of the Cold War era. So let me know if you are flying that, what you like about it, because it's maybe one I need to revisit. I just haven't gotten around to it. It's well done. There's no question about that. The level of detail that they've put into that aircraft is quite phenomenal. Let me know too if you fly the Christen Eagle. What those are complex flight models. When you have an aerobatics aircraft, you really have to be on your game to make those fly in a way that mimics what the aircraft is capable of in real life. So again, let me know what your thoughts are on that. Now, for World War II Carrier fans, good news. This didn't come out actually in that newsletter that Eagle Dynamics released recently, but Leatherneck are also working on an Essex-class Carrieer. What they're hinting here is their intention is that a player will be able to actually spawn in the hangar. You can start up the aircraft and bring it up to the main deck for a launch, which I think is really cool. It'd be cool to be able to do the same thing in the Super Carrier. Of course, we know that pilots generally don't just sit. You don't start up the aircraft in the hangar anyway. They're all started on the main deck, from my understanding. Pilots walked. You didn't walk in the hangar and then sit in it and then yada yada yada. There's a certain amount of danger in all of that too. So generally you got on board. But I think this is a cool idea. And will add a sort of level of fun and immersion, of course, that we all enjoy in DCS world. So well done then for doing that. Now, if that's all a little bit too World War II-ish for you, and you're looking for something a little bit more modern, or if you're a fan of the Cold War era, well, this will appease, because they're currently working on the Chance Vought F8J Crusader, which, of course, will join the similar F7 Corsair from Flying Irons. Now, this is a really interesting aircraft. Again, it's going to join the growing list of carrier-based aircraft that we have. It's early days. The project still looks fairly raw right now. They are working on some internal systems, including the radar, which is good news. Obviously, as I said, it's a Cold War era aircraft, and it's going to offer some very interesting flying characteristics thanks to the unique variable instance wing. Basically, what it meant was that the concept was to allow for greater angles of attack, by allowing an additional 7 degrees of wing that popped up from the main fuselage. It's quite an unusual design. The concept was cool, but it didn't last. And this allowed for basically greater forward visibility on landing and takeoff. So that's going to offer some very interesting flying characteristics, I think. Sadly, the plane was a hell of a challenge to land, apparently, on the Carrieer, despite that concept to improve forward visibility. And it doesn't actually have a very good safety record as a result of that. I forget what the statistics were, but they weren't promising. A lot of the aircraft, I think most of the airframes received some sort of damage. So it won't be easy to use like the Hornet or even the F-14, which in its own right is tricky to fly behind the boat. And of course, new players particularly may find this interesting challenge, or a particularly difficult challenge. Still, there are those I know that will be interested in this from an operational flight challenge point of view, so stay tuned on that, because I think it's a fantastic aircraft. Let's turn to Heatblur. Now, Heatblur simulations, of course, needs no introduction either. They are probably one of the stronger developers, even though they haven't produced a whole lot of aircraft. Again, they're no stranger to DCS world. The two products that they have produced, the Viggen and the F-14AB, are exceptional products. Both aircraft right now have received major updates following the recent 2.7 patch update, or game update. And in recent patches, the F-14 particularly got a major sweep of improvements, ranging from the autopilot system to the dreaded burble aerodynamic effect behind the boat while carrier landing, which adds that extra little bit of challenge. Now, it's a feature that actually Eagle Dynamics are also working on for the supercarrier, that burble aerodynamic effect. So that will influence the Hornet. They're also doing a flurry of other changes to the supercarrier, ED that is, including ready rooms and the air boss stations, among others. Big Nui actually recently posted in a discussion about the burble effect that ED are definitely working on that for the supercarrier module. So that, again, will influence the F-18C, which is great news, of course. Now, getting back to Heatblur's F-14, no question, it's a major fan favorite. I think they actually easily met and likely exceeded community expectation with this excellent product, which litters the annals of naval history during the height and tail end of the Cold War. Few aircraft are more iconic and more ingrained actually in American fighter history and culture, so much so it still gets a scene or two in Top Gun 2, which sounds crazy. Stay tuned for that too. I don't know when that's going to get released, but I actually have a former Navy buddy who is going to wear his whites to the movie theater, which is going to be comical. He's so excited about the latest installment of this aircraft. That's what he wants to do. It's going to be interesting to see how the Hornet actually stacks up against the Tomcat for aerial drama in the film. But I digress. Again, we're looking forward to that just from a fan point of view. Silliness, really, of course. I know a lot of liberties are taken in the production of those films, but still fun to watch. Now, Heatblur recently put up an extensive list of projects and development progress that the studio is currently working on. Of most excitement currently is the likelihood of seeing a full-fidelity A6 Intruder in the game. Now, this venerable bomber served the Navy well for many years until the inherent risk of low-level bombing, the age of the aircraft, and the ability of the Tomcat to actually switch from fighter interceptor roles to the ground strike roles, close air support, so on and so forth, really put the A6 on notice. It will be inserted in the game initially as an AI product, and snippets of footage we saw earlier this year were well received and showed a highly detailed exterior. It looked absolutely gorgeous and sexy. It's one of my favorite aircraft. Now, indications hint that Heatblur may also be working on another full-fidelity aircraft aside from the A6. Now, that might be just community speculation or hope, but that's what I have sort of seen floating around. Either way, Heatblur Simulations' modules, they're some of the best in the game, so any released product will definitely be worth picking up. if you are halfway interested in the aircraft that they are producing. They're not one for overhyping their modules, and as many of you will attest, they release their aircraft in an advanced state of readiness for early access products, something that Eagle Dynamics learned when they made the mistake of releasing the F-16 well short of readiness, which upset the community, and I think they have recognized, and even Wags in an interview earlier this year, or maybe late last year, indicated that was a mistake that they don't want to repeat, and a regret that they have. So, in other words, don't expect a rush jobs in any of the products that Heatblur are going to produce. Patience will likely be rewarded in kind. So stay tuned, because the A6 looks fantastic, and if they are producing another full fidelity aircraft, and we have no idea what that is, expect a good product, because the F-14 and the Viggen are particular fan favorites, and there's a lot of good videos out there of those aircraft working in game very, very nicely. Now, Red Star Simulations is a new studio, and we saw a nice interview with them from Grim Reapers recently. They're kind of the new kid on the block, or maybe the Eastern Bloc. Red Star Simulations is actually working on the MiG-17, so kind of bridging the gap between Bell Simtech's MiG-15 and Razbam's impressive MiG-19, as I mentioned earlier. The MiG-17 is still in early development, of course, but an earlier interview, as I said, with Grim Reapers suggests some degree of competency from the studio, with a multinational group of developers, including some with piloting experience to aid in a realistic performing product. They're not going to shortchange us here. Is a small studio. They're working on 2 versions of the aircraft, from what I understand, and it looks like it's going to be the MiG-17AS and the MiG-17F Fresco. I think it was designated by NATO. So it'll be interesting to see how this addition to the game, for those of who love the early combat jet age with subsonic aircraft, behaves, and what it is going to mean for pilots. It's going to be a step up, of course, from the F-14, which was designed to replace and rectify the flaws in that older aircraft. So, for example, it has a thinner swing, or swept wing, and it was one of the first aircraft to have the afterburner and gun radar built into the aircraft as well. So, like I said, it was a little bit of a step up from the MiG-15. So this is going to appeal, I think, to those who enjoy high-speed knife fight in a phone booth dogfighting, but are not keen on learning all the complex weapon systems that we have, say, in the F-18 or the F-16, which are different beasts to fly. So stay tuned on this. I think it's a promising aircraft, and again, I think it's going to appeal to a particular set of people that enjoy that kind of flying and don't want to get bogged down in the complexities, but still have a high-performing aircraft, even though it's older. It's kind of a nice generation, if you like, of flying. Very fast, actually quite dangerous aircraft in many respects, because there was still a lot of experimentation work with the transition from subsonic to sonic flying, which a lot of work was going on and testing, and it was a dangerous period for a lot of test pilots, to be honest. All right. Another new kid on the block too, actually, Aegis Engineering. Now, of course, we're familiar with them from the Mirage F1 right now, and in the Aviojet C101, which we've had in the game for a while now too. Now, they stunned the DCS community with a sizzling revelation about the development of this aircraft to be inserted into DCS World. And a recent development video showcased a full-resolution cockpit and various working parts both within and outside the aircraft. They're pretty stunning pictures and images. In May, the company indicated that the flight model was close to completion, and they are working on avionics systems. A real F1 test pilot is actually assisting the company with feedback on the aircraft, and they have integrated a comprehensive level of realism, including up to 80 possible systems failures, which is pretty cool. They have indicated the product is close to early access, so stay tuned. As I know, many of you have indicated this will be a must-buy. It appears the F1CE is going to be the primary model to be released, but I'm aware that they are also working on other models of the airframe, which will also be produced at a later stage and brought into the game. So that's exciting news for many of you, of course, and I believe there's a 2-seater version too, so stay tuned. Polychop, now, as I mentioned a few weeks ago, they are in the process of getting the Kiowa light attack helicopter in the game, and like the Apache, its arrival is eagerly anticipated. I had speculated the hold-up on its insertion may have been getting the game getting the module, excuse me, up to scratch in 2.7's version of the game in early access here. Now, the Facebook page has been quiet since early May with an in-game screenshot, and one viewer had suggested that the company may actually be waiting for approval for release from the chopper's manufacturer, and that is Bell, under licensing obligations. So regardless, the holdup is a little bit disappointing, and hopefully we get some insight soon on a possible early access release. And of course, I would imagine too, even if it is ready, they probably want to deconflict with the Hind drop recently, so that could also be another little bit of a delay as they let the hype die down from that. You don't want to release two products at the same time, and there may also be a stipulation from Eagle Dynamics as to when they can actually release it. This is all speculation, and I don't want to throw things around that aren't necessarily true. That's, again, it's speculation and a possibility. Right now we don't know for certain when the aircraft is going to be released, or if there's any other issues that they're trying to unravel. But stay tuned. It's going to be a very exciting aircraft, of course. It's really is a light attack and reconnaissance aircraft, and it's going to lend itself to some really interesting mission choices outside of the heavy helicopters that we have, including, of course, the Apache, which will be hopefully ready in fourth quarter. It's looking promising from what I've seen. And also, of course, the Hind and the KA-50 that we have right now. So we've got some beast helicopters, the Mi-8, of course, the Huey. Really is a nice time to be a chopper pilot. You've got quite a smorgasbord of aircraft to fly from, all of them having different characteristics and having slightly different roles, but are capable of dabbling in different areas, again, depending on their configuration, which is neat. It really is. So that wraps up, I guess, right now, just because of brevity and length. This has been a long video. That's kind of where things are at, very broadly, very generalistically, and not having direct contact with the studios themselves, outside of a little snippets of information that I got from Razbam, of course, with some sneak shots of the stuff that they're working there on the map, the South Atlantic map, which I think we're all looking forward to. Yeah, let me know what your thoughts are. If you're a third-party developer, feel free to reach out. If there's something that you want to share, if you want to talk, interview, whatever, we can do that too. I'd love to discuss what's going on, what you're working on, and it's an exciting time because we've got these really, really good modules from some smaller studios, and this is just great. I mean, these are good products. We don't have to rely, if you like, on ED producing aircraft. We've got these other parties who are willing to do things like Red Star Simulations, for example, and showcasing how you can get involved in this franchise that is DCS World and Eagle Dynamics' product, and producing some very exciting and new things for us to try out and to buy and to fly around in. So let's wrap it up. It's been a long video. I want to thank you for your patience for sticking around, and I appreciate all the comments that I get, the likes and subscribes. So let's do that. Let's generate some discussion about this topic, and I'll see you next time. Thanks, guys. We'll see you next time.